The Kings don't look like they're ready for playoff hockey. We'll explain on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also available on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. Also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Well, the Kings played Game 3 of their 4-game road trip and through Western Canada. They were in Calgary Saturday night, coming off that disappointing loss in that big showdown against the Oilers in Edmonton. How would the Kings respond to that loss to the Oilers? Well, the answer, not well. We'll get into that in a moment, but as expected, the Kings did return to that 11-7 setup, 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. Remember, against the Oilers, they went to the more traditional 12-6 setup, but there was kind of a fly in the ointment, if you will. We did not know that Phillip Danault would not be available. Apparently was injured in the Oilers game. Didn't see him get injured in that game. As far as I know, he played the entire game, but maybe afterwards complained of something. They're calling it an upper body injury. They're saying he is day to day. So hopefully the Kings are just being cautious with what is a minor injury to the Kings' second line center. But with Danault out of the lineup, that meant that Arthur Kaliyev would stay in the lineup. It also meant that defenseman Jacob Moverare would be back in as the extra attacker, going back to that 11-7 setup. Pierre-Luc Dubois was moved up from the third line center position to center the second line. Victor Arvidsson was moved to the top line, along with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe, something we saw in last year's playoffs. Quentin Byfield was dropped down to the wing on the second line, and Kevin Fiala was dropped down to the third line with Blake Lizotte and Trevor Lewis. On the third line, you had Alex Laferriere being dropped down to the fourth line, along with Arthur Kaliyev, and David Rittich would be in net. So a very different situation for the LA Kings in this one, all started by the fact that Phillip Danault would be out of the lineup. As for the game against the Flames, if you missed it, probably better off, but we'll give you a quick recap. The Kings suddenly have a struggling penalty kill, and they would give up a power play goal to the Flames early in this one and fall behind 1-0. Now the Kings would respond with a power play goal of their own. Adrian Kempe's 23rd of the year, Drew Doughty and Kevin Fiala with the assists. Flames would score again, though, to close out the period. LA would be down 2-1 after 1. Calgary then would add to their lead another power play goal to make it 3-1. Kings, though, respond with one of their own power play goals again. Anze Kopitar's 25th of the season. Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala had the assists. And despite only 9 shots on goal through the first 2 periods of this game, the Kings were very fortunate to only be down 3-2 heading into the third period. Again, 9 shots in the first 2 periods for the LA Kings. Well, in the third, they'd get more shots, but they wouldn't get any more goals. Calgary would score yet another power play goal to make it 4-2, and that would be the final score. Kings lose 4-2, allowing 3 power play goals. Goalie David Rittich allowed 4 goals on 35 shots on the loss, and the Kings dropped to 38, 24, and 11 with their second straight loss. As for the game stats in this one, Calgary gets the 4-2 win. They outshot the Kings 35-18. Power plays, Kings get 2 power play goals, going 2 for 4, but Calgary went 3 for 6 with the man advantage. Faceoffs favored Calgary 29-24. Block shots favored LA 27-18, and hits favored the Kings 28-21. So, one word to describe the Kings game against the Flames: perplexing. The dictionary defines perplexing as completely baffling or very puzzling, and that would describe the effort and the execution against Calgary. So the Kings play 2 very solid games. They get 2 wins against 2 playoff teams in Tampa Bay and Vancouver. Then they get the Oilers game, which was not terrible, but obviously not nearly good enough. And if they would have beaten the Oilers in that big game, I could have understood like a letdown game in the next game against Calgary, a non-playoff team. I could have understood it, but that didn't happen. The Kings should have been pissed off that they blew an opportunity against the Oilers and have come out firing against the Flames, and they didn't do that. Not even close. So perplexing would be the word that I would use. Now, I've talked a lot about this, and you probably know this just as well as anyone. This time of the season, you're going into the final month of the regular season. Now is the time to be playing your best hockey. You're not going to win every game, but you want to be playing the right way. And the Kings can't look great at times, like they did against, in particular, Vancouver, and then look bad 2 games later. Inconsistent teams don't win playoff series. Head coach Jim Hiller had this to say about the disappointing effort and execution against the Flames. Quote, "We've got to get to the bottom of it because this time of year, we've talked about it. We've had a pretty good month. We're playing hard night after night. Why weren't we ready to play hard tonight? That's the question that we've got to answer, got to find an answer to." So the Kings head coach, clearly feeling probably the way we all do, didn't make much sense, perplexing. But that effort, that execution, I mean, it's just not acceptable at this time of the year, especially. Was there a big positive? Was there a big plus to take away from this game? There's only one that I can think of, and that was the power play. The Kings scored 2 power play goals for just the second time this month, scoring more than 1 power play goal in a game. It was only the second time in 18 games they've scored more than 1 power play goal in a game. So that was a little bit of a positive because the Kings do need that power play to get going. But other than that, not much positive to take away from this game. There was a big negative, and you probably can figure it out from what I said, the penalty kill. It's been the one consistent all season long through good and bad for the Kings. They've always had a strong PK. It's been amongst the best all season long. It's been number 1 in the NHL for most of the year. They gave up a season-high 3 power play goals against the Flames, and the Flames aren't exactly Tampa Bay or Edmonton on the power play. The Kings have now allowed 6 power play goals in their last 4 games. That's more power play goals allowed than the Kings had in the entire months of November and January. It's just 1 less than the Kings allowed in the entire months of December and February. It's also been weird that several of these goals have been scored almost immediately. This is not a situation where, they kind of wore the Kings down by keeping the puck in the zone and moving it around. And no, they're scoring like immediately. So hopefully this is just an anomaly. Hopefully this isn't a reason well, it is a reason for concern, but this is something that needs to be corrected because, like I said, the one thing the Kings have relied on all year long has been that penalty kill. If that suddenly is an issue, that's bad news. That's really bad news. So the Kings are back in action tonight, looking to get that bad taste out of their mouth. And we do have some injury news, and a player has been called up looking to make his NHL debut, which could be something very exciting to see. We'll talk about it all next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. We are headed into the stretch run of the NHL season, and the Kings are hoping to make a playoff push. But regardless of where the Kings are in the standings, I need to remind you that you could win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick a player or players and predict if they will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. And it's not just the NHL. You can play daily fantasy with the NBA as well. But win 100 times your bet on Sleeper by correctly predicting the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me right, Kings fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail your picks, and you could start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities. So we are now in the final month of the NHL regular season. We have hit April 1st. Hope you had a good Easter, by the way, for those of you that celebrate. The Kings have 9 games left in the regular season, 3 on the road and 6 at home. Tonight, they are on the road in Winnipeg to wrap up this 4-game road trip. And this is also the final game for the Kings out of the state of California for the rest of the season. The matchup tonight, this will be the final of 3 meetings between the Kings and the Jets. LA won the first meeting way back on October 17th, third game of the regular season in Winnipeg, 5-1. The Jets came back and beat the Kings 5-2 in LA on December the 13th. The Kings come into tonight's game with a record of 38, 24, and 11. They're now in 4th place in the Pacific Division, 8th place in the Western Conference, and in 14th place in the NHL with 87 points. Kings are 21, 13, and 4 on the road this season, coming off that 4-2 loss against the Flames in Calgary on Saturday. Kings are 4-2 in their last 6 games. The Winnipeg Jets are 44, 24, and 6, 3rd place in the Central Division, 5th place in the Western Conference, and currently 9th in the NHL with 94 points. Jets are 23, 11, and 3 at home this season. They're coming off a 3-2 home loss against the Ottawa Senators on Saturday. And the Winnipeg Jets are currently riding a 6-game losing skid. They're 0-5-1 in their last 6 games. Kings have dropped to 17th in the NHL in goals scored per game at 3.07. The Jets are 20th in the NHL in goals scored per game at 3.03. LA is still 3rd in the NHL in goals allowed per game at 2.58. And the Jets are 2nd in the league in goals allowed at 2.47. Kings are 11th in the league on the power play, 22.4%. The Jets are 22nd with the man advantage at 18%. The Kings have fallen out of that top spot as far as the penalty kill goals goes now. They're 2nd currently on the PK in the NHL at 84.5%. Winnipeg 24th in the NHL on the PK at 76.7%. So the special teams could be an advantage for the Kings tonight, although it hasn't worked out that way lately with the way the penalty kill has been struggling. But again, they're taking on a team that's not very good on the power play. Hopefully that continues. Individually, the Kings have 3 players with 60-plus points on the season, 4 players with 20 or more goals. Kings still have a 3-way tie for the lead in points on the team. Anze Kopitar, Kevin Fiala, and Adrian Kempe all have 65 points. Trevor Moore leads the team in goals with 26. Kopitar's got 25 goals, Fiala 24, and Kempe 23. The Jets have 1 player with 60 or more points. That's their leading scorer and captain, Mark Scheifele. He's got 65 points. Defenseman Josh Morrissey has 59 points on the season. Winnipeg has 1 30-goal scorer. That's Kyle Connor, who has 30 goals. They do have a couple of 20-goal scorers. Mark Scheifele has 23, and Nikolai Ehlers has 22. Former King Tyler Toffoli is on this team, but he may not play tonight. Apparently did not take the morning skate because he is suffering from some sort of illness. As for other former Kings, can't really talk about this matchup without addressing the big trade that happened in the offseason between these two teams. Of course, Pierre-Luc Dubois coming to LA for Gabe Vilardi, Alex Iafallo, and Rasmus Kupari. And you may have heard me talk about this a little bit on Friday's fan feedback show. One of our listeners sent in an email talking about how the players we sent away have done. And if you didn't hear that or see that, Gabe Vilardi has been pretty good for the Jets when healthy. Problem is he's missed a couple of different stints with significant time out due to injury. He just came back in the lineup the game before. He had been out for about a month with an enlarged spleen. Before that, he had a knee injury that he suffered against the Kings very early in the season. So 39 games for Vilardi this year. He has 16 goals and 30 points. Pierre-Luc Dubois has 17 goals and 42 points in 72 games this season. As for former King Alex Iafallo, 10 goals, 24 points in 74 games. And Rasmus Kupari, no goals, 1 point in 27 games. So the guys who the Kings sent away haven't been great for Winnipeg. Gabe Vilardi, if he had played a full season, his numbers would be pretty good, but not as good as it was a year ago with the Kings, I would say, if you project those out, but not bad. So overall, I don't know that. I know at the time Winnipeg certainly felt like they won the trade, and I understand why. But so far, I don't know. I think you'd have to say it's kind of even. Vilardi, again, one of the reasons why I think the Kings were willing to part with him is that he can't stay healthy, and he hasn't been healthy with Winnipeg. Iafallo's been a guy, and Kupari's been nothing at all. So, and Dubois has been Certainly, again, it's not what the Kings paid for necessarily, but when you look at his numbers based on being a third line center, um, again, not kind of taking the money out of it, which I know is hard to do. The production has been okay. As for the two netminders for tonight, the Kings are going with number one goalie Cam Talbot. Checks in with a record of 23, 17, and 6, 2.44 goals against average, sixth best in the NHL, and a 916 save percentage, tied for fifth in the NHL. He's got 3 shutouts. He has won 5 of his last 6 starts. Of course, that last start was the loss in Edmonton against the Oilers when he allowed 3 goals on 19 shots. Talbot 0-1 against the Jets this season. He allowed 4 goals on 28 shots back on December the 13th. The Jets are going with their number 2 goalie, Laurent Brossoit, which is a fun name to say, over their number 1 Connor Hellebuck, which is a little bit surprising. Brossoit checks in with a record of 12, 5, and 2, 2.05 goals against average, and a 927 save percentage. Those are very good numbers, although in limited action, 20 games this year. He did start on Thursday against the Devils, allowed 3 goals on 40 shots, taking the loss. He has not faced the Kings this season. All right, as far as the Kings making an addition to the lineup, Akil Thomas, recently named the AHL Player of the Week for the Ontario Reign, was called up to join the Kings on Sunday. The Kings also placed forward Alex Turcotte on long-term injured reserve so they could call up Thomas from the AHL. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Turcotte is more injured than they initially thought, but their teams use LTIR to make roster moves, and that's what the Kings did in this situation. So there's no indication that Turcotte is more injured than we first thought. However, he isn't skating as well, and it wasn't on the road trip with the Kings, so certainly something to be a bit concerned about. But for Akil Thomas, 24 years old, 43 points in the AHL this year, 22 goals and 21 assists in 61 games. Former second-round pick of the Kings back in 2018. He's played 154 career AHL games, 90 points, 46 goals, and 44 assists. So we think we're going to see Akil Thomas in the lineup tonight, making his NHL debut. If that's the case, that'll be exciting. As far as a projected lineup against the Jets tonight, friend of the show and Kings insider Zach Dooley posted on social media based on the team's morning skate, a potential lineup, but this is very fluid. It does look like the Kings may be going back to the more traditional 12-6 setup, 12 forwards and 6 defensemen, but that's not etched in stone. And the big caveat here is Phillip Danault. He did skate this morning, although I wouldn't describe him as a full participant based on what I read. Afterwards, head coach Jim Hiller said that Danault was 50-50 and a game time decision for tonight. Personally, I would not play him tonight. Go ahead and give him some extra time off. Make sure he's 100%. If he's 50-50, then you're trying to figure it out. Don't figure it out. Keep him out until he's 100%, and there's no doubt. We need him for the playoffs. So, yeah, you'd like to have him tonight, but I would play it cautiously and not play him. So, if he doesn't play tonight, then I think we should definitely see the NHL debut of Akil Thomas, which is exciting. Now, I don't expect much from him. He's probably going to be on the fourth line, centering the fourth line. He's not going to get a ton of minutes, but hey, it's a guy making his NHL debut. That's exciting. I think teams sometimes can get excitement out of that. You feed off a young guy who's getting a chance to live his dream, and you never know what he can do. All right, he's excited. He's fired up. He's going to go out there flying around, and hopefully he can spark the Kings and make something happen. So looking forward to Akil Thomas being in the lineup tonight. As far as what the lineup looks like, Pierre-Luc Dubois, if Phillip Danault is out, would be the second line center again. Blake Lizotte would be promoted to the third line center, and we think Akil Thomas would be the fourth line center. Alex Laferriere is down on the fourth line as well, and Arthur Kaliev is back in the lineup. And if it is going to be that 12-6 setup, then expect Jacob Moverard to be out as that last pairing defenseman, and Jordan Spence and Andreas Englund would be the third pairing for the LA Kings. As far as some keys to win for the Kings against the Jets, and to me, this is really, it's a key to win against the Jets, but it's more a key for the Kings going forward. Number one, play a connected game. They did not do that against the Calgary Flames, and it's just that's a basic part of hockey, again, especially this time of the year, to play connected. Now, maybe it's been affected a bit by some of the injury issues. I guess that's understandable, but play a connected game tonight. It shouldn't matter who's in the line. At this point, there's been so much change and so much roster shuffling. It's not a valid excuse. Get the penalty kill back on track. Again, Winnipeg does not have a great power play. So if they allow a power play goal or two tonight, then I think that's raised the alarm bells on that one. So get that back on track. And finally, make it simple. The 9 shots on goal through 2 periods was insane. Make it a priority to shoot the puck on net and crash the net, or get in front of the net and put the puck on net. That formula is never a bad thing, regardless of any circumstances. Who's in the lineup, who's not. It's the most basic hockey sometimes can be the best hockey. Get shots on net, get traffic around the goalie, hunt rebounds, screen the goaltender, get deflections, go to the net and get shots on net. It's the most basic thing in hockey, but it's always something that's effective. The Kings need to do that tonight. All right, so where are the Kings in the standings as far as the Pacific Division and the Western Conference playoff race? Plus, we have a rain report as well. All that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a number 1 seed, it is time to go dancing on America's number 1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 back, and you can bet that on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. LA Kings face the Winnipeg Jets, 6 p.m. Pacific time tonight. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast to your LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. All right, let's check the standings in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference playoff race coming out of the weekend. Edmonton has 94 points. They are in second place in the division, and I believe that is where they're going to finish. I believe that Edmonton is going to win that second spot, and I believe they will have home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Who their opponent will be has yet to be determined. Will it be the LA Kings? Will it be the Vegas Golden Knights? Vegas checks in with 90 points. They beat Minnesota in overtime on Saturday. The Wild pulled their goalie in overtime, and the Jets scored into an empty net because Minnesota's desperate for 2 points, not 1. And so that gamble did not pay off, and it benefited Vegas. So Vegas 4 points back of Edmonton for the second spot. I don't think they're going to catch the Oilers. Nashville has 90 points as well. They lost to Colorado 7-4 over the weekend. They're only 4 points, though, back of Winnipeg, who is struggling for that third spot in the Central. So that's certainly up for grabs as well. LA has 87 points. They're 3 points back of Nashville for the number 1 wildcard spot. They're 3 points back of Vegas for this third spot in the Pacific Division. I believe the Kings can still catch Vegas and finish third in the Pacific. They're 3 points back of the Golden Knights. The Kings do have a game in hand on Vegas, and the Kings' strength of schedule the rest of the way is much easier than Vegas. So I think that is definitely something that is within reach for the Kings to try and get that third spot and face Edmonton in the first round, if in fact that's what they want to do. St. Louis, we'll mention them, 82 points. They're 5 points out behind the Kings. They suffered a huge loss over the weekend. They got shut out at home by the Sharks 4-0. And to me, that's it. That killed their playoff hopes. They could not lose that game on home ice to the Sharks. 5 points back. I don't think it's going to happen. So people have asked, are the Kings going to hold off the Blues? With that loss to San Jose, I think St. Louis is done. So the Kings, at worst, I absolutely believe will be, at worst, the number 2 wildcard team in the Western Conference. I think we can stick a fork in the St. Louis Blues after that awful loss to the Sharks. So if the playoffs started today, the Kings would face the Dallas Stars in the first round. Now, if the Kings catch Vegas, they would face Edmonton in the first round. If the Kings can catch Nashville, right now they would face Vancouver in the first round, but that's still to be determined. So there's a lot of moving parts still going forward here as we're in the final month of the regular season for the LA Kings. Now, neither the Golden Knights nor the Predators play on Monday night. The games of interest tonight for the Kings, you got Colorado taking on Columbus. Avalanche win, they'd be 1 point back of Dallas for first place. And if they finish in first in the Central and the Kings remain where they are in the standings, it would be LA against Colorado in the first round of the playoffs. So again, a lot still going on for the Kings here in the last month of the season. But for them, bottom line, take care of their own business, play good hockey, and then that's the most important thing, regardless of who you're going to face in the first round. We do have a quick rain report checking in on the Kings AHL affiliate in Ontario. Reign went 2-0 over the past 7 days. Wednesday, they beat the San Jose Barracuda 3-2. They were down 2-0 after the first period, scored the next 3 goals. Akil Thomas had one of them. So did Charles Hudon. And then it was Taylor Ward getting the game winner in the third period. Aaron Dell in net, 2 goals allowed on 36 shots in the win. And then on Saturday, the Reign beat the Bakersfield Condors 4-3. Francesco Pinelli, Andre Lee, and Nikita Pavlicek all had goals. And then Captain TJ Tynan scored the tiebreaker in the third period, which would be the game winner. Eric Portillo gets the win in net. He allowed 3 goals on 35 shots. So Ontario has moved into third place in the Pacific Division of the AHL. They've got a record of 36-21-7, and they have clinched a playoff spot in the AHL playoffs. So the Reign are going to the playoffs, and we're excited about that. They have 8 more games left in the regular season before they start their playoffs. 2 this week, Wednesday at Henderson, and then Saturday they host San Jose. And before we wrap up this show, I have to say, and I know you'll join me in this, congratulations to the greatest goalie in LA Kings history. Jonathan Quick, if you missed it, posted career victory number 392 while playing with the New York Rangers, and he moves past Ryan Miller and is now the all-time winningest American-born goalie in NHL history. Congrats to Jonathan Quick. Well-deserved, future Hall of Famer, again, greatest Kings goalie ever, and still getting it done. He's now the all-time winningest American-born goalie. Congrats to Quickie. If you are an everydayer, and we hope that you are, you listen and watch this show every day. Coming up on Tuesday show, obviously, we'll recap Kings-Jets, hopefully for a much better effort for the Kings in this one. Wednesday, we'll preview the Kings-Kraken. That will be coming up Wednesday night. Thursday, we'll recap that game and preview the Kings-Sharks matchup coming up in San Jose. So the Kings got back-to-back games coming up here. It's a busy week. Friday, we'll recap that Kings-Sharks game, preview Kings-Canucks on Saturday, and of course on Friday, have another Kings fan feedback show. It is a busy week. Hope you'll be with us here on Locked On LA Kings for the entire week. If you want to send an email for the feedback show or just contact the show for any reason, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. EDDIE is the email address. We hope that you'll follow us on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, go Kings, go.